Better Buildings for Humans is powered by Advanced Glazings, makers of the Solera line of products. Solera is the leading glass glazing made specifically for architectural daylighting and with extreme insulation performance. Learn more at advancedglazings.com.
And welcome to this week's episode of Better Buildings for Humans. I'm your host, Joe Menchefski, and this is the podcast where we take a look at the impact that the built environment has on our health, our wellness, our productivity, our general joy of being alive. And of course, we talk about sustainable design as well. I've got an interesting guest today. We are going to a very different place today. We are going to talk with Robert Bean, and no, not the other Robert Bean, not the ASHRAE fellow Robert Bean that has been on the show before and hopefully will be again. A new Robert Bean. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Number two.
Robert's coming from Denver. He's the owner of Impact Creative Studio, and he does marketing and advertising and marketing strategy for architects, for interior designers. Robert, welcome. It's great to have you here. I want to start by people getting to know you a little bit better. Tell us about your background and tell us about the path that led you to the founding of your agency.
Absolutely. So I like to say that I had two passions growing up. One was aviation and one was being creative. And as I matured and went through school, the creative option wasn't the particularly aligned one, or it wasn't pushed and promoted in a way. And so I actually went down the aviation path and became a commercial pilot by the age of 23. Within 1 week of becoming a commercial pilot, I was on the line, I was flying the Airbus, ideally the dream scenario for anyone in that position, flying over the French Riviera back to Italy, and a voice very clearly said to me, "This isn't it." And I couldn't hear it for what it meant back then, but it was the beginning of understanding that maybe there was something else for me. And it took me 6 years to go part-time, and when I finally went part-time and had almost a bit of capacity and space, headspace, a bit of clarity, I got the inspiration to pick up my camera again because I was always into photography and making some fun little films, and realized that there was maybe a potential to earn money in a creative field, which wasn't really understood with the starving artist side of things growing up. And long story short, I got to the place where I started doing freelance work, started working with brands, and I had the opportunity to tell a story. And it was the first time I was able to sit down with somebody and hold space for somebody and tell their story, tell their vulnerability, share their truth in a way that I hadn't actually ever experienced before. And it was a dear friend of mine who went on this journey north to south of Italy, solo by bike, after a divorce, to prove to himself that he had what it took to do life alone. And by the end of this interview, I was crying. He was crying. I was just so touched and moved by his story and the connection that I felt to him in that moment that something triggered within me and said, I think I need to bring this to the world. I don't know how I'm going to package it up. I don't know where it's going to take me, but I felt that there's a lot of disconnect in society. There are a lot of lost people. There are a lot of people kind of out there not really living their purpose and their why. And if I was able to give them a little bit of inspiration or hope through the stories that I tell, to be able to take that first step to make change in their life, much like Davide was showing in the transformation that he had in his journey that I captured, then maybe I would be making the world a better place. And maybe I would be supporting in a way that felt aligned that I wasn't finding in aviation. I just wasn't finding it when I closed the cockpit door. It was like, okay, it's just me and the captain and a green line on a screen with the GPS to follow. And that was really the birth of it. That was the birth of creating Impact. And with it, left Italy, moved to the US. Big hit to the nervous system of trying to build a business with no understanding of what business was all about. But I was a pilot, right? I could do anything. I could start a business. And it got me to the place where we've worked in a breadth of industries and now really have landed on something that feels deeply aligned with us.
Well, you're doing some brilliant, beautiful things. I want to open with a quote from your website, okay? And I'm just going to read the quote word for word, all right? Impact is a creative studio specializing in character-driven storytelling for the visionaries shaping the future of well-being. I like that. All right. First of all, tell us your definition of well-being.
So I chose the word well-being because wellness comes with a certain maybe energy or attachment. If you consider a wellness brand, you might ask, okay, it's probably in some kind of healthcare or skincare. It might be, People have their own idea as to what wellness is. It can be quite subjective, but well-being to me is health. It is wellness. It's prosperity. And so those leading the future of well-being are those that are influencing wellness, but then can be in a breadth of industries. Someone that is maybe in wellness design or sustainable design might not consider themselves as wellness focused, but are they influencing the well-being of their clients? Yes. So it kind of is the way that I can kind of niche in without being too niche, while understanding that these are people impacting the health of humanity.
I love that. Yeah. I don't want to make this about myself, but I just have to for a second. When we first created this podcast, we looked at all the conversations about health that were happening out there, all the podcasts, and there's so many podcasts out there about nutrition. There's so many podcasts out there about exercise. But, the buildings that we spend 90% of our time in have a very profound impact on our health. And there's nobody talking about that. And I said, that's where we go. That's the place to go. That's an important conversation. And so, a similar sort of discovery. I want to know what character-driven storytelling means. Can you explain that one to, the boring old engineer here?
So very similar in the word wellness. Storytelling as a word, it's such a buzzword right now in the marketing world, in the branding world. You go on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. Everyone thinks that they're a storyteller. Every industry thinks that they're storytelling. No offense, architects. I've seen it on your websites too, that you're storytellers. But to me, a story is a character asking a question and going on a journey to answer that question, right? It's what we experience in books. It's what we experience in films. And so because there is such a buzzword of storytelling, in the past, when I found that I said to people, I do storytelling, they're like, oh yeah, I get that. It's like, you don't maybe understand how we tell stories. And so then when we really focus on character driven, it helps you understand that it's similar to documentary style, right? Like we focus on a character, we focus on their journey, and we are able to show it from a human lens and their emotional journey versus it being kind of brand storytelling, which today that just means content.
Right. I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of myself, but give me a little preview. Storytelling from the perspective of, I'll call it marketing, advertising. Can you give us a brief overview why true character-driven storytelling is valuable in communicating, the value proposition of, say, a particular architectural firm?
Yeah. We buy and we interact with people and from people. When we're hiring a firm, we're hiring the people. We're not really hiring the end result. We're hiring the people behind it, the why, the vision, the values. It's what we try and communicate in those early conversations of how are we different as individuals, as a company. And it usually comes down from the perspective of the human. And so we interact human to human. And we're trying to sell, in the instance of architectural firms of design, we're trying to sell design, something that's kind of intangible, versus actually trying to sell the humans behind it. And so when we can tell stories from the characters that will be leading the project or be leading as guides for the clients, then it helps build this deeper trust. And we are in a trust recession right now. It's person-to-person trust is at an all-time low. And if we can get our humanity across and the things that light us up and inspire us and bring that why, then we build that trust faster. We need to kind of communicate about the what less, and we can get to the point of sale much easier.
Imagine a building where natural light flows freely, solar heat gain is under control, and comfort is unmatched. With Solera translucent glazings, you can create spaces that work better, feel better, and deliver lasting value. Learn how at advancedglazings.com.
I love that. Tell me why you chose to focus on working with architects, designers in this world.
I like nice things.
That's fair.
Beautifully just elevated spaces, beautiful space.
Yeah. And they're really nice people. Like they're fun to talk to. They're fun to hang around with. It's always an interesting conversation. Yeah, for sure. But I'll let you go beyond that. Is there anything?
Big time. So in the history of impact, we have worked in many different industries, from kind of healthcare initially to sports, to the sporting world. We even did a stint in clean tech and sustainability. And it was actually a conversation that I had with a dear friend at NREL, National Renewable Energy Labs, just down the road in Golden, Colorado. And she was saying, you know, I love this tech that we are creating, this clean tech, this sustainably focused tech. But like, sometimes I just think like, maybe we're heading in the wrong direction, because this seems to be a psychological issue, how we're destroying the planet. It's not a tech issue. And if we're creating all of this tech, then isn't it just adding to the noise if it's essentially coming from the same place, if we haven't done the work to heal ourselves first? And that was this huge light bulb moment for me of like, whoa, okay, maybe I'm looking in the wrong direction. And as I start, and you mentioned this before, it's like the spaces that we inhabit and we work in influence a huge part of our lives. And that really interested me at the beginning. I was just like, wow, like if we can design spaces that can positively influence us, does that then influence how we show up in our own lives, in our own healing journey, in our communities, and subsequently how we treat the world? And there was just a big interest around design and hospitality and creating spaces that really like nourish people.
So I'm going to go off script a little bit here. Is there any differences in terms of the types of media that you would use in creating value proposition oriented content for architects and designers versus, sports or some of these other market segments?
So now in what we offer, no, in terms of character-driven storytelling, it's always delivered by a film, and that's the medium. But in the past, we worked more as a creative agency. Okay. So we would be developing more the positioning and understanding the messaging, understanding how the website works more as a funnel and the different assets that could exist on that, from lead magnets and capturing their email and email marketing. So there are so many different things that companies can do, especially in the built environment. Not many companies are doing anything, right? I mean, so many companies aren't doing much when it comes to their branding and their messaging, that sometimes a film might seem like a stretch. It's like, okay, well, why do we need that? It's like, oh, we haven't actually done these initial parts around your brand. So now really the focus is being able to offer films that capture that heart, capture that story. And whether it is in sports, whether it is in hospitality, or even in design, it all revolves around the humans that are part of it.
Right on. I love, okay. There's something on your website that talks about a method called the coherence method. Okay. So I want to understand your creative process a little better. What is the coherence method? And it also talks about neuroscience playing into the coherence method. Can you tell us what it is and how neuroscience plays into it?
So coming from aviation, which is very kind of high-end, high-caliber industry to be in, where the processes and the SOPs and the methodologies and why are we doing things have been studied deeply, I came out of that understanding as well. I don't just want to tell stories. I don't just want to make films. If I'm going to do business, I want to be able to get to a point where I'm in a category of one. And that came with a lot of study. That came with a lot of going into psych journals and actually understanding the science of storytelling. And it morphed and it kind of danced and adjusted dependent on the industry that we worked within, but now more so focused on wellness and well-being. I really started to kind of create comparisons between my own healing journey and my own journey within meditation, and seeing the data that exists around that, and then how stories are created and the science behind it that I'd already learned. I was like, oh, hold on a minute. There are deep similarities between the likes of meditation and other somatic therapies and story. And there's a lot of research that has been put out there in terms of kind of narrative therapy. The stories that we tell ourselves influence how we feel and how we act in the world. But there's very little in terms of how do the consumed stories that we are engaging with every day, how do they influence us? Which led me down this rabbit hole to really understand, how are the films that I'm creating, how are they influencing people on a neuroscience level, on a somatic level, which has gone to the place now when we're working within wellness that allowed me to create the coherence method, which is a more involved approach compared to what we were doing before. And it speaks to two areas. The aim is to create what we call neurosomatic media, which is essentially this new style of storytelling, this new kind of media that quietens the dopamine-driven content that we see and are bombarded with every single day, that is hyper stressful, that is really in our face, that is, really creating a culture of overly stressed fight or flight individuals, and being able to offer something that softens their nervous system. And so it has two sides to it. It has the neuroscience side and it has the somatic side. I can talk to you about the 3-step process that we take, but that's kind of the boring part. It's just how we execute and actually create the content. And
I doubt it's boring.
But...
I don't think it's boring. I bet you it's not boring. Can you summarize it fairly quickly, the 3-step process?
So in general, we still need to create the content that goes beyond the neuroscience side of things. That is more our production. So we go into story finding. We actually have to find the stories, the most remarkable characters. Then we define keywords for our clients that actually helps define the project from a marketing and branding standpoint. And then lastly, we'll go into storyboards and create the characters and actually develop the 6-act structure. So from a process side, we're able to deliver on what the clients need. But from a science standpoint, our 2 focus points is the neuroscience side, the somatic side. From the neuroscience side, we focus on 2 things that comes up in the science of storytelling. The first is narrative transportation. Narrative transportation is the phenomena when we get sucked into a story and we get lost in a story. And it happens as a result of several factors. It comes from designing the arc in a certain way, delivering the arc in a certain way, designing the characters in a certain way, ensuring the pacing is aligned. But from the neuroscience standpoint, is we want to get to a place where the viewer, their brainwave state slows down. Right now, we're in beta brainwave state. We're thinking, we're active. A lot of people are in hyper, elevated brainwave state, fight or flight, just constantly unable to slow down. And so with a good story, you get to slow that brainwave state down towards alpha. And if you do it really well, towards theta brainwave state. This is beneficial for 2 things. A, it's really beneficial for the viewer because it calms them. So we're creating media that calms. And the second thing that's really beneficial is more for the person or the brand that's putting out the content, is it gets people into a state of suggestibility. This is prime for advertising. That's why advertising is often pushed out late at night, because our brainwave state is starting to slow down because we're in a state of suggestibility, which means you can push a message, some values, a vision, whatever the brand is looking to actually put out into the world. That is when you put your message out there and it's received better by the person because they're in a state of calmness as a result of their brainwave state slowing down. So it's very beneficial for marketing.
How do you get people to pay attention from the beginning, like to just go there from the beginnings? And I know it's like, how do you be a doctor, I guess, but can you give me any sort of hints at all as to the way that you get people to pay attention in the first place so that they can get to that slow state where they're ready to receive information?
Yeah, a lot of people say that we're addicted to short form content, but we crave long form content. That's why, podcasts do so well. That's why a long form storytelling and films really do so well. And so there is a place for short form and there is a place for long form, and it's getting that long form into the hands of people when they're ready for it. But from an engagement standpoint, to actually create narrative transportation, we follow this 25-50-25% rule, which means in the first 25% of the film, we want to put out 3 acts. We want to put out the hook, the conflict, and the initiation, all within the first 25% of the film, which gets someone hooked in emotionally. And now they're invested and they want to see how the film ends. They want to see, does the person succeed? Do they get to the thing that they're trying to get to? The next 50% is the journey, which is really unpacking the journey and how they would get to the eventual end. And the last 25% is the resolution and the jab, which are the final 2 acts of the film, which finally summarize it and give them the next step. So when you stay quite true to that 25-50-25%, it hooks someone in and allows them to actually get engaged, and then subsequently can create narrative transportation, which is kind of step 1 of the neuroscience part of it.
Wow. Okay. That's wonderful. All right. I have to take this back to architects and to designers. So tell me how you would help an architectural firm that was trying to promote, healthy, sustainable design to potential clients, and tell us how you would help them, broadly. And then, or you could It doesn't have to be broad. You can dive in. You could even pick an example, however you think is the best way to communicate that response as to how you're going to help them. And then tell me how you make it emotional and not just technical, because I see so much content that's just purely technical, and it's just like, I have to really work and want to work to pay attention to it when it's just purely technical. So that's a lot, but tell us how you would help the architectural firm specifically rather than just a generic sort of marketing approach.
For sure. Don't worry, Joe, I'm with you there. It pains me every time I see the technical. I'm like, come on, guys, there's more. There's more.
Yeah. It's important, but when it's standalone, it's so hard for me to get engaged.
Yeah. And there's a place for the technical, and it is actually usually at the end of the sales cycle, not at the beginning of it. It's when people want to see, okay, I get the vision, I get where we're headed. Now show me that you can do it. Now show me that you have a process that could do it. Now show me the technical aspects behind it that will help us succeed. But it is at the end of the sales cycle. It's not at the beginning of it. What happens at the beginning is, and so I like to lean on, and there's a concept in storytelling called the unifying theory of 2+2. A lot of firms are eager to essentially give the answer 4 to their clients. Like, you should think this. You should really value this approach. You should really value this technicality or system, without giving them really the meat of why should they care? What is their emotional connection to it? Like, what is actually going to benefit them in the future? And so if I was to sit down with an architectural firm, this is funny, and I'll tell a quick story, is like, we did a piece for an architectural firm a couple of years ago, and they wanted to tell the impact of a project that they had residential with a client. And they were saying, it was an incredible project. We reused the original foundation from the home that was there before. We have these incredible steel beams that hold the structure up, like in this beautiful kind of sweeping and angular living room. And we sat down with our clients, and halfway through, the husband turns to us. He's like, sorry, guys, we don't care about any of these things. Like, we don't sit there and admire these steel beams every single day and be like, wow, these steel beams are so good. Thank you, architecture firm. Thank you. And we don't go down into our basement and be like, you know what's really great about this home is that we reused the foundation. Wow, this is incredible. They care about the quality of life that now happens within it. They love the way the light shines in from the west when they're outside on their balcony. They love the space that they now have to get together as a family within the kitchen that feels much more connected than they had before. So if we were to promote, the value of healthy, sustainable design, I always lean on the why. Why? Like, why is it important to this firm in particular? What are the benefits to it from a wellness standpoint, from a well-being standpoint? It's not that, good R value means you're going to have a great life. It's like, okay, maybe. And most people don't care about that. They care about the great life part. And so always at the beginning, I try and pull our clients out of this technical thinking and just be like, why do you care about this? Why do you care about this compared to maybe the firm down the road? If they're going to be speaking to 5 firms, what makes you different and what makes you more qualified on this subject? And why is it beyond it's good for the planet? Like, why is it important to you? And when we can communicate that from the offset, then the client feels it differently. And after they've received 5 presentations that all look and sound the same, they're going to remember the one that had a little bit more heart and passion and vision behind it.
How do you make sure that it's not greenwashing? I mean, everybody knows what greenwashing is. We've just been inundated with it. A quick story again about me, just a little bit. I own a company that manufactures and sells scent-free cleaning products. We started about 15 years ago. Not a huge company or anything, but at the time that we started the company, everybody was just taking their cleaning products and changing the label. We'll rip this label off and we'll put a green label and a picture of a leaf on it. Ta-da, now it's a green product, right? And it's always been a green product. We just had to change the labeling. So greenwashing, everybody knows what it's about. You just change your stamp. You just change your collateral to your content to put a little green leaf on it. How do you make sure that the story you're telling isn't just greenwashing, but somebody actually feels the commitment to, sustainability and, healthy design?
It is much harder to do that with words on a website. Right? Anyone can write good copy. Anyone could write the perfect post. You just ask ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, I need to post this new thing on Instagram. Like, give me the perfect copy, and it will. Yeah. right? And so it's very hard to pull out truth when you're just looking at maybe images or words on a website. And this is where I really lean on film as one of the most powerful mediums that we have to communicate truth. Because when you see someone being interviewed and they're saying something, we have a pretty good filter now whether something is truthful or not. And we can tell if someone is coming from the heart or whether it's not. You can tell if it's being scripted or whether it's something that they live and embody every single day. And this is what would then show the difference between someone that is kind of just joining the bandwagon because it's like trendy and someone that actually lives and breathes it. And if we can go to that root, if we can go to that why, like, why are you doing this? Like, what were the circumstances in your life that set you on this trajectory that you care about this subject so much that you actually put your whole business revolving around it and actually focus on it for those that are really focused on like sustainable design and tell that story? And an example of this, we worked with incredible, and we still work with them today, one of our favorite clients, because they're just so real and they just do things for such great reason. They are an off-site prefab builder, but they're passive house certified. So they do these like incredible work, absolutely incredible work. And they've been around for 10 years and they have unbelievable technology, and they're on their 10th version of it and offering truly remarkable results for their client. And of course, with it being off-site, like they put it up within 48 hours and you have this airtight home just like built super quickly. It's very impressive. And they could easily go out and say, you know what, like we built to passive house standards because of X, Y, and Z. Oh, you know, this fresh air system that we have, okay, it's good for you. Like, we'll tell you it's good for you. Sure. Like, these are all good things to know. Oh, this is the kind of insulation, this is the kind of wood that we use. And then people would probably go, okay, but why do you cost more? I get all of that. But like, there's a prefab builder down the road that does it better. Or I can get it stick built and it's going to take some time. But like, why? Why should I care? And what we uncovered is that the founder, when he was very young, he had breathing issues, severe breathing difficulties that they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And it took years of going back and forth to the hospital to actually understand what's going on with this kid. And it put a huge impact on the family, huge impact. They were able to overcome it. And then later, when he went through high school and then got his degree and came out the other side, he started a business within the built environment, and they were kind of remodeling homes. And then the spray foams and the toxic materials that were being used in homes re-triggered his breathing problems that he had when he was a child, which created a huge amount of impact. That moment led him to ask the question, is there a better way to build a home? Is there a healthier way to build a home? And that's the story we ended up telling, because he had a deep connection to health and well-being that was impacted by the regular way that we build homes and the corner cutting and the cost cutting that goes on in, you know, the traditional built environment. And so then when we told that story and put that part of the funnel, people showed up to calls already aware of what that story was and now deeper connected to the founder, to the mission, and to the why, and then subsequently became more trusting of them and their choices and the reason why they do build to these standards, and didn't question it as much because it came from the heart. And so that is the difference, right? It's not like we'll say we're passive house and so like we're good, right? Or we have this Energy Star rating and we're good. It's like, no, why is it important to us to build this way? How is it impacting the lives of you and us and our families and such? And that is what we're able to communicate when you tell a story from the heart and when you just dig a little bit deeper than the superficial.
Do you want to bring lots of healthy, beautiful, natural light in your building and still meet energy codes? Try Solera from Advanced Glazings. Learn more at advancedglazings.com. That is just beautiful. Oh my goodness, I love that. Another little aside, but we had a guest on here, I don't know, about 30 guests ago or so 30 episodes ago or something like that called. His name is Tim Rossi, and he started a company called Architectural Medicine. And so you have almost no training for doctors, right? As you just described, the breathing issues that your client had, you know, if somebody is being impacted by radon gas, if somebody's being impacted by, a bad material that's volatile and that's giving off chemicals that are impacting our lungs or whatever, there are almost no doctors that would have enough insight into building technology to diagnose that. So Tim's created this, basically a diagnostic tool. Also, it spits out a thing for a home inspector to go and do the checks and then come back and tell the doctor, well, as it turns out, there's radon in the basement. Just a beautiful thing. And I think, when you go deeper like that and recognize that these built environments, I mean, it's the whole purpose of the show. These built environments can have really deep, profound impacts on us. And for the people who've actually felt those impacts, if you can go down that layer and extract that emotion, my God, how powerful is this? Absolutely amazing story. I appreciate that. I'm getting off topic again, but let's come back and let's have some fun. Let's do a fun thing. Okay. As you probably know, I do some work in architectural daylighting where, the sun is your primary illumination source in a space. There's obviously the energy savings, but the biggest issue is full spectrum light. And the more we dig into it, the more we're finding that we have to have full spectrum light or we're going to get sick in multiple ways. Tell me how you might create a film that helps people realize how important natural light is to their well-being. And I'm not going to steal it, I promise. I just want to watch the creative process unfold in your mind. Only I want to watch it unfold out loud.
I mean, please steal the idea. Please take it. It would be great. Well, first of all, I would leave the city for some headspace because with these skyscrapers around me, I don't get much natural light.
Just slightly above your left shoulder, I can see a little spot of the sky about that big.
Not so bad in the summer, but the winter it's dropping now, so I need some of that too. Yeah, I mean, let's dive in. I think it's super fun to be able to look at different angles of this, and it kind of even goes back to the initial example of the client that was kind of like looking at the foundation, right, and looking at the steel beams and looking at the design aspect of this. When the clients were like, "Oh no, this is not what it's not what I care about. It's not what I see every single day." And so then my first question is, who is this for? Really? Like, who are we creating this for? Are we creating it for other people to help them understand the importance of it and subsequently then feel more trusting in that design style? If so, I want to hear from the voices of those who have been impacted by that kind of design style. And the initial part of anything that we do, and it's what I mentioned before in terms of our 3-step process, is story finding. I want to sit down with all the stakeholders. I want to sit down with everyone that gets involved in terms of your design process, the designers, the people who are actually involved in this process. But I really want to speak to the lives that you have touched as a result of designing this way. Your clients, sit down with them, be able to take some time and understand, who are they? What's important to them in life? How do they live? Like, how are they building their family in this space? How are they building their passions within this space? And start to understand how maybe light has played a factor within this. And what's beautiful is the more conversations we have, the more perspectives we can hear. That then would allow us to sit down and say, well, what is the narrative that really wants to come through here? Like, what is the most remarkable narrative? What's the most remarkable character out of all of the people that we've spoken to? Because it's easy also to say, I'm going to sit down, the principal's going to talk. The principal might be really boring. Right. It just might not be a strong character, at which point it becomes wasted budget. You're like, no, we want to focus on Bill and Sandy. Well, Bill and Sandy might be really boring and they just don't know how to articulate themselves. Cool, the design of the home might have been beautiful, or the space, but they themselves aren't remarkable. And so when we're investing in storytelling, investing in film content, because when you have a team around you in this process, it's a big investment. We want to ensure that the most remarkable story is being told. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time for everyone. So I would initially just have as many conversations as possible to see all the different angles, because I want to find that gem, that nugget, that through line of someone that maybe was working somewhere else and then like being able to work at home has completely transformed their lives, and the light is beautiful and it helps them show up in a different way. Like, that is the kind of transformation that I'm seeking when I'm looking for stories to tell, because that is the story that, and it goes to the 2+2. It's like, we want to tell that story and not just prescribe and say, you should design this way because it will give you X, Y, and Z. tell the story of the life of someone you've touched, how they've transformed. And as a result of both their story and the visuals and showing the natural light, the viewer will naturally go, oh, I want a home like that, with that much light. Like I would love to design in that way.
The classic testimonial format, there was a problem. And then I bought this window or this, I don't know, this flooring material or whatever. And now everything's great. Here's some pics, end of testimonial. But you go so much deeper to understand the emotion of why things are so much better now that they've chosen. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love that. All right, we're coming close to the end. I could talk about this stuff all day, but we're getting close to my self-imposed time limit. Two questions are coming before we finish. The first one is my universal question. So, Robert, every single show I ask this question, and I ask my guests to answer it from whatever perspective they'd like. Okay? Here you go. What makes a great building?
Great question. I'm not qualified to talk about R value or triple glazing, so I'm not going to go there. But to me, what makes a great building is how the space promotes connectedness between those that inhabit it or work within it. If it deepens health, connection, prosperity, abundance within the individuals or families, or offering a space for multi-generational families to be a part of, or communities, or just interconnected businesses, like it makes a great building. And like, to me, it doesn't matter if it's built sustainably or not with different technologies. If it isn't creating that deeper connection between people and helping them live their best lives, then it's not a great space. But if it is, then it is a great building.
That was a great answer. For a guy who's not qualified, that was a heck of a good answer. So, but you just said you weren't qualified on the technical aspect of it. That was just a fantastic answer. I love that very much. All right, let's use this time that remains to hear if you've got any sort of exciting announcements or upcoming events or anything that you'd like to promote, Robert.
Yeah, we're actually kickstarting. This is a long play. So me just kind of geeking out on the neuroscience behind it and diving into narrative transportation and oxytocin and all the somatic aspects of storytelling behind our process. It's led us to a point where we're in initial conversations around actually researching how consumed stories can heal. Then actually being able to create a framework that we'd be able to use in content, but also in health protocols, that we could actively say, this is the framework to storytelling that has created measurable positive results within our bodies, that we can actually say creates essentially a very micro-fractional version of healing compared to the likes of meditation and other deeper things. And so we're at the very beginning of that journey, and as a result, I'll be sharing more about that on my LinkedIn in our blog, and probably over the next year or two, because going into research and finding funding and collaborating with different universities and research teams, it takes a lot of time, but it's something that I'm deeply passionate and excited about, and really grateful that I'm in a position now in business and in life that I can give to that and be able to offer the world a framework that can transform the way that we tell stories and the way that we create content, and ideally get us away from this intense approach to content creation online and help create deeper connections and health.
I love it. All right, before you go, give us your website again.
So website is impact.eco, ECO, and you can also find me on LinkedIn just under Robert Bean.
Wonderful. And not the other Robert Bean up in Edmonton.
Not the other Robert Bean. This Robert Bean.
All right. No offense, Robert. Love you, buddy. All right. Robert, thank you so much. This has been an absolutely wonderful conversation.
No, thank you so much, Joe. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
You take care.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Better Buildings for Humans. For more information on the world's best light diffusing and highly insulating glass glazing, please visit advancedglazings.com.